Welcome back to the channel. We have Aniket with us today and the Chinmay, right? So Aniket will introduce himself. I think Chinmay is facing some issue. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll just quickly introduce myself. Thank you so much, Punyawal, for inviting me to this stream. So my name is Aniket Magrum. Uh, I am working as a lead engineer at Sanctum Solutions. So my
Right.
major day-to-day role includes building APIs for high-end and scalable application.
Good.
Like I have been working with Laravel for the past 6 years, and looking forward to contribute and learn more from the framework and build quality applications.
Right. Okay. Chinmay will introduce himself.
Sorry, am I audible now?
Yeah. So we are on the live stream. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So hopefully
Yo.
I think it just broke.
I think he is still facing some internet issue. Uh,
I'm
okay.
facing some internet issue today.
Okay. Okay. No problem. Come back later. Okay, we can continue, I guess. Once Chinmay's internet issue will be resolved, he will introduce himself. So we will go now, like we are going to talk about the REST APIs today, right? And like Aniket will try to show like how he works with the APIs, and we will try to understand like what we are missing when we work with the API, or like what we can improve in our APIs, right? So let's go. Aniket, you are muted.
Yeah. So, like as of now, like I have been working with APIs for the last 4 to 5 years, and I am not much that well versed with the front end. So, in general, I have seen problems in APIs which are like incorrect API route definitions, right? Incorrect API structures, um, then incorrect status code for the APIs, right? And all of these problems, generally, like if your client is making use of your application, then he should be
Right,
easily able to figure out how the routes are, right? There are many quality standards and everything defined, but still people fail to properly organize things. And like it's really important if you are building an application for a scale, and many of your clients are using applications to build quality REST.
right.
So, I'll just go through some of the practices which you should follow. We'll quickly
Right.
head over to the Laravel documentation, right? First, just share my
Yeah, we
screen.
can. So, yeah, sure.
I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah, it's visible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's visible.
So, if we go on to the Laravel documentation set, right? So, the
Right,
first thing is how should we structure our API routes, right? So, as per REST standards, if we just go to API resources in Laravel, right? So, this is the
right,
first topic. Uh, like how can we quickly structure a API routes and a API response structure, right? So generally what happens is if we are returning data to the front end and the same API is getting used at multiple places. Say we have a API for returning the user response, right? So if we return the data from separate controllers in a separate format, generally what happens is if I change a key at some place or if I make changes to the key, it only gets reflected on one place, right? So this is what API resources allow us to do. API resources allow us to return and encapsulate the return data in a common class. So here in this particular user resource class, we can see that we are returning the ID, name, mail, created at and updated attributes to the user. All right, and after that once this API resource has been defined, we can easily use this API resources inside of our controllers. So from our controllers, we can directly return the API resource. So the benefit of this is, if we go through it and as per the documentation, right? So this is how the response is returned to the front end when we make use of API resources. So firstly, all of our resource data is encapsulated in a key called data, right? And inside of this data, we will be able to see all of the related data which is for that specific resource, right? Secondly, if we make use of API resources, then we also have information about the various pagination and metadata for that particular API resource. So as you can see here, we can see the different kind of links, like the paginated links, the meta information, and all of the other information which is available here as well, right? So this is like how we can make use of API resources. If you want to make an API resource, Laravel also provides us with a method which is available, right? Can make use of the command called PHP artisan make resource, right? And using this particular resource, you should be able to create a resource class and then structure your response structure in any way. Uh, Punyapal, would you like to highlight something about API resources?
Yeah, actually, like when we are using like API resource, we can save ourselves from sharing the data which we are not like supposed to share publicly, right?
Yeah,
I think that was the main reason to use resources. Mm,
correct. Correct. That is also a very good point. So, like generally, some of the hidden attributes which we set on models, say password, and all of this model hidden attributes, generally, like if we don't use the API resource or something, um, they might get returned or they might be getting dumped or somewhere. So when we make a use of API resources, we are like safer from these kind of problems.
right, right. So, like the Jigar is asking that is REST is a standard or a protocol?
So REST, as per like my definition of REST, it is like a standard which is a community-driven standard. Right? It is formulated by I think some really well-known people, right? Like not I would not say known, but really into tech people, right? Who want to formulate and like if we have a common standard for things, then it's really easy to collaborate and communicate with other developers as well. So I'm not sure about who is like whether I should define it as a protocol or should I say it as standard. But generally, I would say that it is standard.
I actually like see the REST as a like a protocol, right? Like I mean, REST is based on HTTP protocol, right? So it
Yeah,
can be a protocol, right? Yeah.
yeah.
So
Chinmay,
let's
like
go
what are
ahead.
your thoughts? Yeah. So I will take on with the next topic, right? So how should we make use of API resources? Okay. So like while defining routes in our like generally there are two type of routes which we could deal of. First one is the route like which are CRUD in nature, say create, read, update, and delete routes, right? So generally this route should follow a specific pattern. So like while I'm naming a route, say like I have a photos resource, right? So while defining the photos resource, this is how the Laravel provides a standard for specifying the like the CRUD routes. So I can write route API resource, then the name of the resource, right? Whatever I want the endpoint to be, and finally the controller which handles all of these definitions. Okay. So yeah. So this is once like the the definitions are done. This is how like the it looks like. So first, uh, just a moment. I think I'm at the wrong part.
Okay. So like Riddhi is asking that how resource work in the backend.
Yeah. Uh, so resources are like returned from, like we can make use of resources inside of any of our controllers. Okay. And instead of our controllers, like inside of the any of the actions which you have written, say store, uh, like the update action. In the end, instead of returning the model or the array, we can directly return the API resource, like whatever resource we have created, we can return that, and the resource internally handles all of the logic. So basically, whatever data gets written, it controls the data which is getting returned. I hope
Right.
this should answer your question, Vidhi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving back to the topic which we're discussing about. So here is what like a resource controller does for us. So it creates all of the following routes which are like available on the screen. So first it creates a get route. So this get route is responsible for returning all of the resources. Right. So here you can see that it is a photos get route. This is kind of a listing API. It will act as a listing API. So once the user enters this particular route, he should be able to see all of the photos. Then it creates a route like for photos dash create. So this is the view for the particular resource, like for creating a particular resource. After that, we have a photo store endpoint. This particular endpoint will be used as when the resource is getting posted and it is getting served, like stored in the database. Next, we have a get API for a single resource. So this particular API will return all of the, like a single photo, all of its related models as well. Then we have a photo slash photo ID slash edit. So this particular route will help us edit a particular resource. And finally, we have a resource for updating a particular resource and deleting a particular resource. So by default, by using a single line definition, say like route API resource, photo resource, I'm able to encapsulate all of these routes, right? And then inside of my specific API resource controller, I should be able to then define all of the methods which are required. So Laravel also provides us the option to say make use of nested resources. So for example, we have a photos resource, right? And photos can be associated with comments. So we if we use like the dot notation, like say photos dot comments, right? So then Laravel will create as a row in this particular format. So we have the photos slash photo ID, and after that we have the comments and comment ID. So Laravel will automatically handle all of the validation and relationship constraints when we make use of nested resource. So we should not be able to access a comment which is not a part of that particular photo, right? So this is what Laravel internally does behind the scene when we make use of nested resources.
So it
Yeah,
is like, but we should use API resource, right? This will have a edit and the like create page, right? And whenever we use APIs, right? So we don't have those two pages, right? Like and
correct, correct.
right,
Yeah, yeah. So basically, like the Laravel comes with two specific formats for building resources. So one we have is like the resource one, right? This is the one which includes the create and edit resource as well. But there is another one which we can make use of, which is the API resource. So this API resource excludes the other route definition like the create and edit, and it will only include like the API side of things. So if you are building only APIs without the front end, right, the blade part, then you should try and use this API resource route. It will exclude the other two routes which are there.
right.
So like using API resource with a combination of
So
yeah.
uh,
Am I audible?
yeah. So like when actually uh, like we are using Sanctum, right? So like
Hmm.
how should we configure the Sanctum in our APIs? Like
Yeah.
should we use Sanctum or a passport?
Yeah. So my thoughts over Sanctum and passports are like passport is kind of a more advanced version uh, compared to Sanctum. So Sanctum works with simple authentication methods, right? It makes use of cookies and also API-based authentication. But if you are looking for kind of an OAuth type of integration, right, wherein um, your particular API, there are many clients of your API, and they will try to authenticate with your application via OAuth. At that moment, you should look for some kind of a comprehensive or more advanced solution like Passport. But in general, Sanctum works if you are building kind of an SPA and your
Right.
SPA is having like a front end embedded in React or any other application as well. Uh, React, Vue, any of these particular front end frameworks. And the way which like API resources and API routes should authenticate with Sanctum is if I would quickly open the documentation for Sanctum. So first, like what we do is we like implement this particular trait as API tokens on the user model. This trait can be added to any other model as well. So like say if your application has say a partner model or any kind of different model which should be able to create tokens and that particular user should be able to access the application, then we can make use of this particular model. Then what we have to do is we have to create a token, right? So whatever token gets created, we have to return it once the user is logged in into the application. And after that, here is how we can apply the middleware on our routes. So once we apply this middleware, any APIs which are need to be authenticated, uh, there needs to be a bearer token passed in the request. So whatever the token is passed, based on which Laravel Sanctum will authenticate, and based on that, the response will be generated to the front end. So whether if the user is authenticated, it will be like the response will be shared, or else the API will return a 401 token.
Right. So, like, what kind of mistakes like people do when they are returning the responses with different kind of status?
Yeah, yeah. So a classic example of this is like returning the 200 status code instead of returning a 500 error. So my perspective on this is like if anything is failing at the backend which requires immediate action, right, from the backend developer or the engineering team, always it is a like it should be logged as a 500 error in the system. We should not return a status code of 200 and then say that an error has occurred. This is one of the classic mistakes which generally happens when like newbies or new techies are trying to build APIs. The problem for that is generally there are many kind of monitoring tools which use status codes and they show it in kind of a dashboard, right? So there are tools like New Relics and other monitoring tools. These monitoring tools are provides a dashboard and an easy way to like configure notifications and look into the system and resolve errors. If you are working with any APIs, make sure that you return the proper status code in the response. So 200 should only be for responses which are like totally successful, like the 200 series. So 201 is for created, then 400 for any client side errors, right? So where the client needs to take action, and any status code like 500 should only be for the server side errors.
Right. So, like, let's take some questions from the audience. Right.
Mhm.
or maybe we can say some like messages also. Amitav is
Yeah.
saying that an important point to know will be why use API resource, when we should use it, or when it most beneficial. So he's asking about like when to use like API resource.
Yeah. So I will highlight my two use cases for that. Um, so the first one is encapsulating the logic and the keys which are written to the front end. So generally, if I have say users controller, right, and I'm returning the information from multiple places. So say I'm returning the user information say from 3 to 4 different places, right? So I want to have a common place of control from where I can add or remove new keys from the APIs. So suppose if a new key gets introduced, I don't want it to automatically get returned in the response. I would like to control its behavior. So API resources are like a common way from where I can control the response. Secondly, it comes with various benefits for eager loading, right? So if I go to the API resource documentation, so it includes several benefits, right? So one of the favorite features which I like is conditional relationships, right? So if you are able to see the example over here, so inside of this particular resource, uh, we are returning another resource. So we are returning posts, right, for that specific user. But what I can do with the help of conditional relationships is that um, I will only return this post relationship when it is loaded. So if Eloquent was able to either load this specific post, then only it will be returned in the response. API resource come with many of these features. So some other features which I would like to point out is conditional attributes. So say like you want to return a specific key in the response only when the user is an admin, right? So there is some key, say coupon code or something like that. So using the when conditional method, we should be able to control the response which is sent to the user. So API resource come with more handy features as well, apart from the basic need which we have is of encapsulating the keys in a common class.
Right, right. So, like, I think it must be clear. Let's say, like, the Jigar is asking, in Sanctum, each user has its own token. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty clear, right?
Yeah. So Sanctum, I would say each user can have many tokens at a time. It's not necessary for one user to have a same token, right? So there are like two types of way I could see. Like user can create his own personal tokens as well, and at a time he can log in from multiple devices and say all of those are stored in the token. So whichever token he can make use of, Sanctum provides us with the ability to also set expiration of a specific token as well. So a user can have many tokens, but yeah, obviously one token belongs to one specific user only.
Right.
Uh, there is something I would like to add over here. Am I like the feed is clear,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you're
Okay.
right. Audible.
So this is a feature I have not used in particular, but Sanctum does provide you with the ability to have certain scopes with the token. So let's say you have a token where you may just give read access, like it may not have write access. So like a similar way in how GitHub or Discord uh, works. Like you got the point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, let's like continue with the Amitabh's question. Like, let's everything fail internally. Okay, it's not the question. He's saying,
mm,
let's everything fail internally, but we should never tell the user about that. I mean, if uh, I didn't understand what he's trying to say.
yeah.
Maybe he's trying to
Mhm.
say that if it is 500, then we must still we should show the like 200 response. That is trying to say maybe.
Yeah, yeah. So that is, I think that is with context to that returning incorrect status code to the front end.
Right,
So
right,
yeah,
right.
but it's good as a joke. But in general, if applications fail, we should be notified at the earliest as possible.
Mhm. Yeah, Amitav is saying it was a joke.
Yeah.
Okay, but
Right.
I see one more thing, like from that particular joke. Actually, when it is like when we are returning, like user don't have the access, right? We usually return 404 at place of 403, right? Sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Just to let them know that it's not available, rather than they are not authorized to it, right? Sometimes we do that, right? So, what is your opinion on that particular thing?
Yeah, that is like a very good approach. So I think the same kind of approach we might use for password as well, right? So like whenever a user tries to log into an application, instead of saying that a particular user password is wrong, we generally say that the user does not exist with the provided credentials. So
Right, right.
it's kind on the similar pattern wherein we don't want the you end hacker like it may be a hacker, right? So we don't want the end user to kind of know whether a user exists in the system with that. This same analogy can be applied to routes as well. So if I don't want any end user to know that this specific route exists, eh, then I like exist for unauthenticated users, then I will make use of 404 instead of having it like a 403, which makes it clear that the route exists.
Right, right, right. So, like the BJ is saying that while using Laravel permissions, do you store permissions role in the token? I mean, he must be trying to say the abilities maybe. Like we have a like permissions table, sorry, tokens table for the APIs, and we have one column called abilities, right? So maybe he's trying to ask that do you store those permissions into the abilities? Do that?
Yeah, yeah. So I feel he's talking about the Laravel permissions package by Spatie. So generally, while I am using that particular package, I've always used it like user is mapped to specific permissions, and the permissions are stored in the database, right? And whenever I'm do like at every route level, I do a check whether the user has this permissions or not. So to directly answer the question, the permissions are not like mapped to a specific token, but they are mapped directly to the user. I hope like PJ, this answers your question.
Let's continue further.
Yeah. So we discussed about two specific topics, right? So like the first one was how can we like create API resources and what are the benefits of using them. Secondly, we also saw about how we can use API routes to like quickly organize our routes in a better fashion, right? Next, like one particular thought for me is like how should we like typical applications are not that simple, right? So they
Right.
involve other routes as well, right? So say we have a route, say lock a particular resource, or say we have bulk actions as well. So in that I want to say um, create multiple resources together, right? So I'm fond of one package which I will just showcase you here. So the
Yeah, you can.
so this is a specific package for Ryan. So this package is like a great package if you like quickly want to build out REST APIs using Laravel. So I will show how they like uh, create resources for bulk, right? How can I create bulk APIs? So as you can see here, uh, the way they organize bulk resources is in this fashion. So uh, like I have a batch API which stores multiple posts together, right? So how they name the routers, like say I have this as the base structure for the route, say myapp.com/api/post, and then I name the action as batch, which is part of the URL, and then I can send multiple resources inside the APIs So resources will be the key, and I will have an array of posts, right? So in the background, what I will do is I will use a specific action, right? So the same action I will use for bulk in a loop, and the same action I can use inside of my RESTful API as well. So my logic is kind of isolated, and I can make use of both together. So this particular package has given like a good example of how we can make use of the batch operations inside of our application, right? So along with this batch create, we also have batch update. So the difference between like the batch create and batch update is batch update would require you to specify the ID of the resource. So as you can see here, I am specifying the ID of the user like 5, 6, and then I'm specifying the what about I need to update as well. And finally, we have the batch delete where I'm passing the resource IDs for multiple resources. So for naming bulk resources, this is like the way I like to organize my routes. So like I just take this inspiration from this package. So I would like to know your thoughts about it. Like Punyapal, do you how would you like to rate this particular thing?
Right. I actually was trying was thinking to ask you about the like how you mm, do resource structure your resources or responses, right? So it is like you are following this particular package,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Right. So we mostly have some JSON API something, right? Like we have some standard for JSON API, right? So I think that's what I was trying to ask.
Yeah.
When you return the models, right? You put
Yes.
the attributes into different stuff, relations into the different stuff, like different array.
Right.
So that's how
Correct.
maybe that works. I actually don't remember the site name. Whenever I will remember it, I will ask you about that particular stuff, and will try to ask you to share that particular site with us. Okay, we can get some questions from the audience. Let's see.
Yeah.
I think that there are no mostly questions, but like the clear something that can clear the question about the permission. Amitav is saying, I think he was asking when you are using the token from Sanctum or password, do you store permissions in the token? And
Yeah. Yeah, so I've never used token functionality, like permission functionality abilities, they call it, instead of Sanctum. But if I have seen the database structure, so they like every token can have specific permissions linked to it. So I think instead of Sanctum, they call it as abilities. So yeah, like I can have specific abilities at token level as well.
right. So when I was using that particular stuff, right, I actually done something like I was using ability to identify from which device it is coming, right? It is like I have defined the abilities like mobile, desktop, and web, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a ability, right? And
Yeah.
whenever someone logins from the mobile, I create token with the ability called mobile, right? Whenever someone login from the desktop, I create a ability with the mobile desktop, and from
Okay.
web, I create a web. So when I define that particular abilities into the middleware, right? That
Okay.
if this ability is available, then and then the user can access the routes. So because what actually was happening when someone access the route of desktop with the token which is generated for mobile, if we don't have such abilities, right, they will be able to access any API with the same token, right? So that's
Yeah.
how I structured that particular. I use that abilities to like identify stuff.
But like I have a question around this. So I'm assuming that while creating the token, you were expecting the client to send you the device, right? So,
No.
okay,
Actually, uh, what actually happened was we have a different API endpoint to log in for different devices. So from the
okay,
endpoint only, I was able to
Okay.
decide which like from where it is coming, right?
Mm-hmm. Got it. Got it.
Hmm.
So based on like the
So
endpoint
okay,
itself, you are
yeah, right. So Jigar is asking, I'm also confused between put and patch. Which one to use for update? How you remember to differentiate?
correct.
How you remember the difference? I mean,
So I will first like give my reasoning and understanding around both of these methods. So like how I see put is like if I want to update the entire resource, okay. So I want the newly entered fields to be saved as it is and override my existing resource completely. Correct? That is when I would make use of put. And patch I would make use of when I only want to update, say, a certain number of keys inside the request. So, like, say I have a very heavy model. I have around like 40 to 50 feet in that model, and I only want to update a couple of attributes in that model, right? So, generally, in that case, I would make use of patch. So, like the way Laravel is structured around, like both the put and patch are pointed to the same method of the controller, right? So you can make use of both put and patch. And instead of that, I generally like if we write a request validated, try to like accept all of the keys and update the entire resource. So my Laravel controller works in both fashions. It works as a put as well and as a patch, and both as a patch. So that is use case dependent. Sorry, if you want to update the entire resource, just make sure that the front end like tells you that it is a put, just for like referencing and getting to know the user intent. Otherwise, Laravel generally in Laravel how we write our code, it supports both patch and put. So that's not a big concern unless like you
right.
only accept specific data.
So where like when we are using API resource or a resource, it allows us
Yeah,
to use patch or put both in the update route, right? But
yeah, yeah.
otherwise, otherwise we can if we are defining our routes manually, right? So when then we
Yeah,
can just get to like define the put and patch differently, right? Okay, I think
yeah,
I remember that particular thing which I was trying to ask was it called JSON API.org. Can you open that particular site?
yeah,
JSON API.org mostly. That was I remember.
yeah. So this is like what
So
you were hinting about.
yeah, right. So these are bunch of the rules which is followed by like wild community, which are developing the REST APIs, JSON APIs. Like you can see that everything is structured nicely or maybe differently. We can say, right?
Right,
So
right.
still, yeah. So can you like so that is what I was trying to ask that like how you structured your responses, right?
Right, right. So, like this is a kind of a standard which is like set by JSON API.org. But if we go to the Laravel standards, we can see that Laravel by default does not enforce this particular standard, right? So it's like very neat and clean. But I know of one package which allows us to convert our resources in this particular fashion. Laravel API. Like I will just look for that package and maybe I would be able to share on the chat. So there is one package in Laravel that comes and allows us to return responses as per the specification of REST.
Mm-hmm.
So I generally don't like it, but if you want to make use of, like if you want your APIs to follow
Mm-hmm.
that pattern, we
Yeah.
can make use of that package.
So yeah, I know one package actually, which is still in like under development, but we can trust the author because he is the core team member Laravel, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think you can check team McDonald slash JSON API, right? You must know the team, like team McDonald.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the same
Yeah,
package I was like trying to search. So I have
yeah,
seen this
right.
particular
But
package.
But yeah, he's saying that it is still not ready. Maybe like that's what I was knowing. If he haven't released the development version yet. Maybe it's still in the beta or alpha. Maybe can you check? I don't remember.
Yeah, I will just check what's like the release is here. It's in beta.
Yeah, it's yeah. So
It's
it's
in
still
beta.
in beta. So I'm still right. I'm also waiting for this package to be ready to use for everyone. Let's see when it will be available for everyone. Okay, we can take one more question from the audience. A
Yeah.
question. Okay, that is what it is. When exposing the data via API, should I use DTO, data transfer objects, to shape my output, or should I stick with the Laravel built-in API resource to format the response?
Yeah. So, like, um, I use a combination of both. So generally, what you can do is you can pass your like DTOs you use for whatever internal services you require for an application. So wherever you have action classes, wherever you have service classes, right? Make use of resources like DTOs in that context only. And while we are returning responses to the front end, we should make use of like the models. So we should pass our models directly to the resource classes. So I'm not sure of like if we can pass DTOs as well to resource classes, but I think that should be possible. But generally, general pattern which I follow is I use like DTOs for just passing data to the service classes. DTOs are not used elsewhere, and my resources are only controlled by modules. So that is how I look forward to DTOs, and hope that answers the question.
Right. I think Chinmay will share something on the same stuff if he have any
Yeah, I
ideas.
hope yeah, actually I'm facing a lot of issues with the internet. Is my audio clear now?
Yeah, it's like
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, fine. So, like I generally don't personally prefer DTOs, but for the transformation layer, I always prefer the API resources. And it's not a compulsion, but you instead of the model, you can send any object, and that object is assigned to the resource property inside the JSON resource class. So, like how you access this name on the model, if there is a property on your DTO object with the name, you should be able to access that. Because I may have worked with custom objects instead of the model. So yeah, that works naturally.
yeah.
So like what I see is after having a named argument in the PHP, right? We
Mhm.
are not in need of the DTOs anymore, I guess, because you can just pass everything as a named argument, and it feel like the DTOs only, right? I think so,
Yeah.
right? And you can even define the right mm, types, right, with it. So I think it's cool. And even now, like after PHP 8.4, we have
Mhm.
that particular stuff, what we can say, that getter setter in the properties, right, directly.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of scope for upgrading those DTOs too, right, if you are using DTOs. Okay, I think the Thakur is saying, who have asked that particular question about DTO. But if my services are returning a DTO, I don't think API resource will work in that scenario. Thoughts?
Yeah. So
So he's
uh,
saying, yeah, you
mhm.
understood the question?
I understood the question.
Okay,
So
okay.
like that's a valid question, first of all. And
Mm.
I have myself never encountered this scenario where my service is like not returning me a model or like a kind of a structured data. It's like returning me a DTO, right? So for that scenario, I think API resources would work in that similar fashion. So API resource don't only expect us to have a model, right? We can even pass our any of other classes as well to the API resource. And once we pass those particular classes, I just have to access them in the API resource using this arrow, the attribute name. So I can use API resources as there as well if I wish to. There is no hard and fast rule for that. So yeah, you can use API resources. Like I would not say that we should not only bind it to models only.
Right, right. So what I'm saying is now is like I think Amitav has a good point. He's saying that like if we are using DTOs, right, then resources are not required so much, right? So if you can directly work with these DTOs, right? Directly, you don't need the resource, right? That is what like
Yeah,
Amitav is trying to say, right? And like Chirag is asking when to use a custom query builder. I think it's a little bit unrelated, but I can say that see, it depends. Like whenever it's like kind of your personal preference, right? You like the scopes magic or not, right? If you don't like the magic, or you are writing the complex queries, you must use a custom query builder, right? And yeah, actually like even like you can use if you wanna some like if you want to be a consistent, or maybe you want some like what you can say, the uh like a better ID support, so you can use a query builder, custom query builder, right? Okay. Yeah.
yeah. I would like to come back on Amitabh's points about like if we make use
Yeah.
of DTOs, then there are no like there is not a need for using APIs. Yeah, kind of. I
Right, right.
also have that thinking, but somewhere API resources have some other functionalities as well. Say like including resource
Right, right.
conditional includes, then conditional count includes,
Yeah.
right? Metadata information that is returned. So all of these features, like they are difficult to directly find inside of DTOs, right? Otherwise, I
Right.
have to build a wrapper or
Sorry.
something around it. So I like that is the reason I like to mix and match both. But yeah, if we are able to write that particular functionality or like
Okay.
extend it from somewhere, then we can easily make use of DTOs itself.
Okay, you have opened this Laravel query builder. Can you show some like why you have opened this particular like page?
Yeah. So this is one of the packages which I like use in each and every of my project. So like apart from building the APIs for creating, updating, deleting, right? The major work and the major APIs which get used are the listing APIs, right? So all of the listing APIs of our resources generally need filters, generally need sorting, generally need have a requirement for including relationships inside of them, right? So all of these things is what the Laravel's query builder package allow us to do. So I will quickly glance through all of the features that it has, right? So uh, if we see like how can I implement this particular package? So there is a class which comes in built in. So this is like the query builder class. Instead of the query builder class, I just have to pass my uh, like the model class, right? Or I can even pass a query builder object to this. And after that, I can just have to chain all of the filters which are available in the API. So here you can see that I have like a filter called allowed filters for the name column, right? And then simply chaining the eloquent methods for like the fetching all the models. So by just putting this small snippet of code, like on the front end, on my listing APIs, I have a filter available, right? Which clearly looks very readable and very easy to use. So I have a filter like users slash filter name is equal to John. So with such a small code snippet, I'm able to have a filter, right? If I want to pass multiple names to this works out of the box. So I can say filter name is equal to John, comma, Aniket, comma, Punyapal, comma, Chinmay. I can pass multiple filters as well. Secondly, the another feature which I like is including relationships for that specific resource, right? So not always I want my index method to return all of the relationships as well. Say like if I always don't want the users to include all of the posts. Like say maybe I'm just showing a drop down for the user, right? In that case, I will not need the post for that specific user. So then I can also include like conditional includes, right? So here you can see I have like the allowed include methods, and instead of that method, I am passing the relationship name. So if I just do say slash user slash include post, then only I will get the post included in the users. Otherwise, I won't get it. Finally, like we have a sort as well. So I will be easily able to sort on specific columns using like question mark sort is equal to ID. So this package comes with many features like this, right? Like it includes conditional includes like I can also include count of a resource, right? So suppose if I want to include how many posts the user has created, right? So that is also possible using this package. So overall, this package comes with a lot of functionalities, right, which are available out of the box and which less coding required. Love to have your questions on it.
Right. So like everyone is talking about Saloon in the comments. So let have you used the Saloon? Can you
Yeah,
show like share something if you have used?
yeah. So I've not personally used Saloon, uh, but Saloon is kind of, I would say, a more elegant wrapper about around the Ghazal library, right? So it has a very nice API for creating requests, creating connectors, right? And along with that, I can it's very built at an abstract level. So if I just want to say change a URL for an API, I just change it at one place and it gets applied overall through all of the requests. Right? So personally, I would say I've not used Saloon, but yeah, it is a great library which I have seen the community and many people using it.
Right. We are using like Saloon in one of our project. Even like I haven't worked on the Saloon, but like we have like a very large project and we have some modules, and those modules are just for the communicating with the particular APIs, right? The different kind of APIs, and they are using Saloon. So like yeah, I brought the taste for the Saloon, and it's really very easy to work with the Saloon when you are tasting. So yeah, it's good. Mm,
Yeah. So I feel like kind of mocking APIs and caching APIs. Many of these features like are built in via plugins instead of Saloon. So that is like a good part to have. And uh, even at the say at a request level, it's easy to configure. It's like it's very fluent. Like what I can see from this particular snapshot of which is there, right? So I just have to create a connector and I then pass whatever the request is and I receive a response. So it's very clear and concise.
so like I think now we can only like do we have anything to share about APIs? Or like can you show us like how you set up your APIs in Laravel project, like in real time, maybe like with VS Code or PHP Storm if you're using PHP Storm.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it possible?
Yeah, I'll just see for like if I am able to share my VS Code panel. Yeah. So I've shared my entire screen. I hope it is visible. Right. So so like whenever I'm building APIs, So all of the route definitions which I am able to do is inside of the API.php file. So this particular file does not come pre-installed instead of any Laravel application, right? Like in the latest version of Laravel, what we have to do is we have to run the PHP artisan install API command, which automatically generates this particular file, and it also includes Sanctum and other uh, libraries inside of this particular application, right? So once like the API is installed, uh, how I make my controller is this. Like say if I want to create a product API for listing products, a CRUD API for products, right? So I just run the command PHP artisan make model, right? Say product, and then I type in say hyphen hyphen all along with the hyphen hyphen API flag, right? So what this creates me is like the product model, the product factory, the product migration along with the seeder, right? Then I have a like a API form request for like storing product and updating the product along with the controller as well, right? So once like the API route and everything is defined, I will just then define it inside of my route.php file. So say I will use the API resource method along with I will give the name for the route, right? And I will just point my specific route. Okay. So this is like how I simply define my API resources, right? So generally this will have a middleware. Like I don't want any of the users to directly update my products. So this will have a middleware of or Sanctum, right? I will just skip it for this demonstrative purposes. So say once like I have registered my route, I will quickly run the PHP artisan route list command to show that it is registered. So as you can see, all of my routes are registered over here. So I have the listing route, API/products. Then I have a creation route, post route. Then I have like the get route, the update route, and the delete route as well. So it's like such a short amount of time, I'm able to easily create like a rest like the blueprint of my resources. Then I can start the implementation, right? So if I move into my product controller, everything is scaffolded for me. So I have the index route, then I have the store, show, update, and destroy methods, right? So um, if you can see that the my store method has a form request class as a like a parameter over here. So what will this form request class do is like I can specify all of the validation rules instead of this form request class. So before even like the execution comes to my code, right? Like to my method, the form request class will handle all of the validation logic for me. Even the form request class also has the authorized flag, right? So I can, if I want to check for any permissions, say like if I'm using the permissions library, I can easily check authorization over here. Say request user has permission, and I can specify the permission name. Say create products. So any authorization which I would like to have, I can specify over here, right? Finally, like once this is done, uh, I will then create an API reference for my particular model. So say I will create PHP artisan make resource product resource. So what this will do, this will create a product resource for me. Okay. So by default, the product resource, like any resource class comes with,
Can you zoom little bit?
yeah.
Can you zoom?
Is it is it okay now? Or should I zoom more?
No, it's okay.
Okay. So like whatever logic I have to write, I will say perform some business logic over here, right? Then I will insert the product to the database. And finally, what I will do is I will say return new product resource, right? Along with the product. So this is like how a typical flow for my application would look like. So I generally use the resource model in this fashion. For simplicity, I've skipped the part where we are like storing the product to the database, but we can get the idea about what is happening. Any questions about it?
Actually, the Thakur is saying that can you show that fire something to us, like how you are doing that?
Yeah. So this is the extension. I guess it is called power mode. So it's just kind of a thing like, let's see what's its name like. I think it is power. Yeah, this is power mode extension. So this is just to like keep you entertained and kind of interested while coding. I would like to like know if anyone has any questions over this particular thing.
Yeah, yeah. Anu Malik as a co-pilot. Mhm. Chinmay, you can speak directly.
No, it was just a chat conversation, so I didn't want to.
Yeah. Okay, I think now we can take a questions and then we can like just end this stream. If anyone like no one has any question, it was like great to hear from you, Aniket.
Yeah.
It was actually like good when if we was also able to hear from the Chinmay today, but he was just like as attendee.
Sorry, I didn't
Okay,
catch what you said.
so yeah, it's okay. If anyone have any questions, like ask in the comments.
There is one thing I would like to highlight in general, and I do have this OCD with many things, but this is one of my things. I generally tend to stick with the Laravel defaults. So
Yep.
when you try to do with the default set conventions, everything is a breeze. Like earlier also, I think Aniket mentioned that when working with third-party error monitors, like you are using New Relic, we are using Sentry. So things are much more simpler. Like they handle the error the right way. If they know it's a client error, maybe they won't catch it. But when it's another error which should be reported, they actually catch it. So it's much smoother. You should stick to conventions.
Yeah.
Right, right.
And like another reason for that is say whenever a new person joins to in your team, right? Or a new Laravel beginner joins, generally he goes to the documentation first. And if he does not find things relevant as per documentation, then he's like he gets confused. So that is the major reason for me like following the Laravel standards. I want the onboarding of anyone in my project to be very smooth and very fast.
Yeah.
Right, right. So let's go. I don't think like now anyone have any question, right? I don't think so. Right. So let's conclude it what we've seen. Chime will conclude, right? Chime will conclude.
I lost some of the parts, so I think Punyabal, you conclude it today.
Okay, so like we like started with the like resources, API resources, like why we should use API resource, or like how like why it is beneficial, and then we came to the like routes, right? How you should keep your routes, right? Then we came to the like the API resource in further, like how like JSON resource response should be there, like structured, right? Then we talked about like the query builder of from the Spatie. Then we talked about the like what we can say, mm, a saloon, right? So I think we talked about these things, and yeah, it was great to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
A question for two of you. I know about Chinmay's, which editor do you prefer in general? Okay, so like it's the question is for me and like Aniket, like
Yeah.
which editor you guys prefer?
So
So like
my
we know Chinmay prefers the PHP Storm, right? So that's why like I think he asked about us. Okay.
so like me personally, I used to use PHP Storm until last year, and I got a free license for it using some of kind of a student account or something. I was using that. Like, but later on, recently, I'm not coding that much, so I'm just using VS Code. Sometimes I do use kind of an integration of AI. So, but mostly, yeah, mostly it's VS Code only.
Right, right. So I'm also using VS Code, and I actually prefer VS Code over any editor. And actually, I'm planning to do a stream with Chinmay that he will show me like why I should use a PHP Storm, right, in future. So, right, let's see.
I have used
Are you okay
PHP
with
Storm
it,
like for
Chinmay?
a year or something,
Mhm.
but it had a lot of good
I never
features.
used I never used the PHP Storm. Even like the PHP Storm team contacted me and asked me like why you are not using PHP Storm. They offered me some extended trial versions also with the Laravel idea,
Plugins.
but I haven't used like PHP Storm yet because like I'm scared of losing my grip on the VS Code, right? Like for trying PHP Storm for a month or 2 months or 3 months, right?
Yeah. Initially, you might
Okay,
think that the things might be a little difficult for you, but like if you get a hang of PHP Storm, I think you won't be able to come back easily. It's that good.
I don't know. Like, see, like I heard from many people. See, actually, this stream is not about the like which editor we use, but like I heard from many people that they are saying that they are paying from the for the problem, right?
Yeah.
I heard from people. So I'm not sure with the like with using PHP Storm yet, but let's see what Chinmay has for me in his next upcoming streams, right? Hmm. Thakur is also saying that I would like to see that debate with the Chinmay, right? And the Chirag is talking about new VS Code extension. Like, but see, I want to confess that I only installed like VS Code extension once when I was in a like particular stream or something to just show like how VS Code extension is actually working. Otherwise, I haven't used that Laravel official VS Code extension yet, and I'm still not in need of using it. But let's see.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can end this stream. Okay, is it cool? Bye bye everyone. Thanks for joining. It
Yeah.
was nice.
Thank you,
You guys
Advanced.
were a nice audience. Yeah. Okay. Those